surprise attack on the island of Hawaii on December 7, 1941. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. And the next morning, the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, declared war on Japan. And suddenly that action stirred up the existing racism and prejudice that was alive in the United States, and it exploded. Not Asian Americans, Japanese Americans. We looked like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor, and because of that, people were attacked on the streets. They were yelled at and called names, ugly names, spies, Jap, that penetratingly painful racist word. And graffitis began to pop up. My father's car got graffitied. Get out of our neighborhood. Businesses were graffitied. And this kind of wild hysteria swept the country, and it even affected the elected officials of the country. The mayor of Los Angeles, Fletcher Baldwin, said, no matter how many generations Japanese are in this country, they can never be Americanized. California had a attorney general, the top lawyer of the state. His name was Earl Warren, and some of you may recognize that name as the man who became the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. We're just celebrating now the first Justice of the Supreme Court, an African-American woman.
Amen.
But there's something not to be amen about Earl Warren, the Attorney General of California. He was an ambitious man. He wanted to run for governor and be elected governor, and he needed a hot issue. And he saw the seething anti-Japanese American attitude in the country. And he decided to use that as an issue. And he made an amazing statement from our state capital, Sacramento, which incidentally was my mother's birthplace. She was born in Sacramento. The Attorney General said, we have no reports of spying or sabotage or fifth column activities by Japanese Americans. And that is ominous, because the Japanese are inscrutable, that racist stereotype. We can't tell what they're thinking behind that poker face. So it would be prudent to lock them up before they do anything as a preventative. Lock them up before they do anything. This top lawyer of the state of California felt that the absence of evidence was the evidence. Because we haven't done anything, lock them up. And that kind of madness swirled through the country and went straight to Washington and the President of the United States. And on February 19th, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed an executive order, 9066, which ordered all Japanese Americans on the West Coast, roughly 120,000 of us, to be summarily rounded up with no charge, no trial, no due process, and imprisoned in a barbed wire prison camp. No charge. Well, first of all, we have this justice system that says equal justice under the law. And that means there has to be due process. If you're arrested, you have a right to know what the charges are. And then you have a right to challenge those charges in a court of law. And there, the accusers have to produce evidence of a charge. In our case, there was none of that. Simple imprisonment. I remember that morning when I was 5 years old. My brother's still alive, but he was 4 years old then, and we had a baby sister, an infant. I shared the bedroom with my brother Henry. My father came into our bedroom early in the morning, dressed us hurriedly, and said, "You boys wait in the living room while your mother and I do some last-minute packing." Our baby sister was in a crib in their bedroom. And so with nothing to do, my brother and I were standing by the front window, just gazing out at the neighborhood. It was boring. Suddenly, we saw two soldiers marching up our driveway. They carried rifles with shiny bayonets on them. They stomped up the front porch and with their fists began pounding on the door. My brother and I were terrified. My father came out of the bedroom, answered the door, and literally at gunpoint, those shiny bayonets that they had on their rifle. They pointed that at my father and said, we've got the order to get you out. No other evidence of any criminal activity other than our face. My father gave Henry and me little packages to carry. He hefted two heavy suitcases, and we followed him out onto the driveway and waited for our mother to come out. And when she came out, she had our baby sister in one arm and a huge duffel bag in the other, and tears were streaming down her face. I will never be able to forget that. And that was the beginning, just the beginning. It was a whole series of horrors, which you can read about in my book.
Available at his table.
So, my father was the one who carried the burden of that whole internment. And yet, he said to us, he was protective of us children. He said, "We're going on a long vacation in the country." And we were excited, Henry and I. We were taken from our home to, the camps weren't built yet. We were taken to the horse stables of Santa Anita Racetrack, herded over to the stable area, and each family was assigned a horse stable to sleep in.
A horse stable. Did you all hear that?
Can you imagine? I mean, for my parents to take three children, one a baby, into this horse stable that was still pungent with the stench of horse manure. There were insects crawling around on the floor. Spiders would drop down from the ceiling. It was just teeming with insects and all kinds of germs. But to me, I was excited. This is where the horses slept. I get to sleep here too now. And the spiders coming down were fascinating. The funny insects that skittered around